So it makes no difference to me whether it's me envisioning my studio when I'm 50 years old or when it's making a zine or whether it's doing a silkscreen poster. Like once you have the vision of something you want to do, you just do it. And there's really nothing should get in your way of doing that. I mean, it's just kind of like, okay, let's make it happen. And you'll make mistakes along the way. But at the end of the day, there's really no mistake if you're doing something for yourself.
The Perspective Podcast is fuel for your mind and creative grind. Each week, we break down the art of healthy hustling, overcoming the inner critic, and growing your creative business. PC family, we have Doug and Jason of Morning Breath on the show today. This is literally, as I mentioned to them before, it's been years in the making, and I'd love to officially welcome you both to the Perspective Podcast. How you guys doing today?
Doing all right, man.
Good.
Yeah, perfect timing for this. So for those who don't know, which is crazy, can you give us a brief Wikipedia page summary about yourselves?
So, Morning Breath. I'll pull it up right now on Wikipedia. No, one day, right?
Just edit your own shit in there, huh?
We've been doing our thing. Jason and I met working at Think Skateboards back in the mid-90s. I think, 95, 96?
Yeah, 95.
And that's, where we first kind of, even started our style of collaborating. A lot of it would be, I come from an illustration background. Jason was a traditional graphic designer. And we just started, collaborating on skateboards then in a way that is very similar to how we work today. Through the years, we have worked on, slow down a little bit. Worked at Think Skateboards for a few years. Jason had moved back to the East Coast because he was originally from New Jersey. I'm originally from San Francisco. And over the time of being, when he moved back, he started taking on a little more work in the music industry, a few other areas. And we kept in touch all that time and continued to collaborate. And guess what? In 2001, I made my way out here to New York with my family. And that's when we started Morning Breath. And the rest is pretty much, wouldn't say history yet, because we're still doing it,
What about your end, Jason? What's the skinny on you?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much same thing. Went out to California, to San Francisco, got the job at the skateboard company, worked with a lot of talented artists. And we were, one thing we always say is that that's where it started, kind of meeting a lot of people that were like-minded to the way I was. And I think that connection is kind of where we got to today, where our community kind of grew, where it was a lot of skateboarders, a lot of graffiti writers, a lot of just people making art that weren't traditional artists, and they were figuring themselves out. There were some people started clothing brands, some people started skateboard companies, some people were being fine artists, and we were right in the middle of all that at the right time, right place, in the mid-90s. I feel like a lot of people are kind of figuring themselves out, and some of those people to this day we're still friends with, that we still collaborate with, still hire us, we hire them. I mean, that's a community that we developed during that time that really has blossomed into now 2020. I can tell you where a lot of those people I met during those years, where they are now, and they're all doing great things as well. So I always say that we were just happening right place, right time with each other, doing things, and also developing at the right time. We both were kind of mastering what we were going to be doing. And I think that because we were meeting each other, we were kind of constantly turning each other on to new stuff, whether it be my side design, Doug illustration, and that just kind of was coming to a head. And the two of us kind of having very similar upbringings, comic books and skateboarding and BMX bikes. And, we're late 70s, early 80s kids when we were young. And it developed a lot of our aesthetic of what we loved and fell in love with. We grew up with records and, like I said, comic books and cartoons, Hanna-Barbera. And, and it just kind of, when we met, it was like, what about this? What about that? And we constantly were just like super stoked on each other, turning each other on to East Coast to West Coast things. And it kind of just kept on going. And so when we started Morning Breath, with Doug, we're coming up on 20 years. It just is the same. We haven't changed a thing. We're still two guys in a room being creative, and we come in every day and we try to bust our asses. That's about it.
So I think one huge thing there that you guys briefly mentioned, but I think it's a huge deal. I talk about it all the time. Community and relationships are everything. Like, you grow alongside people. You never know who's going to hire you, who's going to take off and need to work with you or collaborate with you or something like that. So the people you grew with in the 90s are still people that you fuck with today.
Yeah, I have direct connections to a lot of things you know, even when I came back to New York, I got a job at the place called the Drawing Board, which did all of, I was, you know, the art directors of Def Jam Records. And I got that job from an old roommate I had in Brooklyn, who was a graffiti writer, who knew a guy who was a graffiti writer, worked there. And so that direct connection got me there. And then still to this day, that guy who hired me, we're best friends with now. And it just, we've done so many art shows together and different things together. So yeah, it keeps going and going. And like I said, there was people that worked with us at Think Skateboards that went on to start brands and worked at Nike and worked at Stussy and then 4-Star and Chocolate Skateboards. And it just keeps on going and going. So as time goes on, that tree just gets bigger. Keep growing.
Do either of you have like the fancy art school, design school degree?
Yeah, I think both of us pretty much. I mean, I went to school in San Francisco at Academy of Art College to study illustration. And, you know, it's a funny thing, man. I think that I don't know if everybody who wants to get into graphic arts or design has the same experience, but I think early on, I went that route for me because I don't think I knew better. I thought that was the only way to achieve it, which obviously now, I mean, retrospect with the, you know, the bills and everything you have with student loans, I mean, there could have been another way. But at that time, I think that I was encouraged more for the idea of like, if you're going to have any success, you're going to need this piece of paper. You know, you're going to need a formal diploma. And truth being told, man, I never had to show that diploma to anybody ever. So, I mean, you know.
I went to Pratt in, you know, New York, and I only went for 2 years, but I feel like I needed to do that because originally I kind of probably wouldn't have taken that step in that direction if it wasn't for me going there and maybe starting my very beginning in my community of people.
Made yourself take yourself seriously at least?
Yeah, and like thinking I could maybe do it. Also, like when I went there, it was like the beginning stages of computers kind of like taking shape. Like I went in there thinking I was going to be using my hands, like art, being an artist and being like a graphic artist. And I was still in the mindset of like doing, really what I wanted to do is I wanted to be a marker comp guy for advertising agencies where you actually draw the ads with markers and you do the concepts with people. I fell in love with that class. I really wanted that, but that was dying at that time. It was computers were coming in. And so there was some teachers talking about computers, some people teaching traditional. So I kind of, when I started, it was like the two of those things were still kind of happening at once. And I think Illustrator had been out, but it was just being introduced to me for the first time. But most of the teachers that were there still weren't using it. They were old school teachers at Pratt at that time. So they were still pushing a lot of stuff being done by hand.
Yeah, I think also, you know, at that time, same with me. I mean, we were doing a lot of things traditionally, but computers started coming in. And a lot of the talk at that time was, you know, don't worry about computers. It's just a tool. They're not going to take over. They were trying to kind of ease everybody's fear of this.
It's like the same people saying, hey, the internet's just a fad.
Exactly. But, you know, I mean, I kind of took that to heart. And I think that as me personally started learning computers, I thought of it in that way as just another tool. So I think that even, you know, I know that you had an earlier conversation with Jason about how even though we do things traditionally, obviously things end up digitally, but I think that the way that we even approach technology is in a very kind of, you know, basic form that stays true to the way that we, you know, learned prior to the computers.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to look at our still screen posters, the back end of how they look, it looks like it was cut with a razor blade because that's how, when we first doing skateboards, they were done with a ruby lift. Like you actually cut ruby lifts for plates. And so we still use the keyline black, and then in back of that black, we cut shapes as if it was an X-Acto blade in Photoshop, like which is the pointer tool. I'm sure other people do it in many different ways, but we still handling it as if I'm using a razor blade. That's just how we use things very simply.
See, and that's what fascinates me. And I think that's like what makes you guys specialists is from the area you came up in. And, you know, back in school, they would tell you, hey, let's not focus on just the strictly digital thing. So I would love to hear about like the transition from that era you guys got started in to like the era that we're in today, where it is kind of a digital world. And how do you continually, I guess, I wouldn't say necessarily reinvent yourself because you guys keep doing what you're doing and it works, but bringing that old school vibe to this new school wave and kind of the trends that you see and where you guys continually, you know, fit in.
You know, I think that, you know, when we first started working together, I mean, I think that was the first time for myself, at least professionally using the computer and trying to learn it. I kind of use my time at Think to kind of learn on the job. And a lot of what we're doing was trying to just kind of figure things out. And when you go back that far, one thing I know for certain is Adobe Photoshop wasn't meant as an illustration tool. It was really just something that was created for photographers to enhance photographs. And there was no books on the market or anything that told you how to, kind of make layers and create illustrations through Photoshop. These are all things that we played around with while we're at Think, and we started figuring things out for ourselves. So I think that was really the beginning of like, okay, let's use this, like I said earlier, as a tool to kind of create graphic arts instead of using Photoshop, what it was meant for photographs, et cetera. And we just kind of continually evolved on that. And I think a lot of our conversations obviously have, like we're saying earlier, have these ideas of like nostalgia, thinking of things that when we were kids and, oh, that stuff looks so cool back then, or the way it was printed, or the way, these illustrators simplified these little things. And I think so much of that has had, an effect on our aesthetic of kind of just for our own kicks, really. I mean, it was never really about creating an aesthetic that was marketable or something that we could, make attractive for a client, but it was more something that we kind of got joy out of. I think. How
do you describe your aesthetic?
I mean, it's kind of, a mishmash of kind of old and new. There definitely is a lot of nods to things that kind of have, I don't want to say, retro, but for a better word, I guess, kind of a retro vibe. But we will do things that wouldn't necessarily be part of that wholesomeness when you think of that kind of stuff,
It's got like some grit undertone to it too.
A little bit of, and also making things just kind of, I guess from our generation of kind of the derelictness and the degenerateness of skateboarding and graffiti and things of the 80s and 90s, started incorporating a lot more of that into this kind of play on these wholesome graphics, these wholesome illustrations, starting with, giving people broken teeth or doing things just that were a little more kind of grittier and fucked up with them. And I think that was kind of, the beginning of us kind of starting to build on that. I'm sure Jason could kind of say more on that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we always say is that we're really inspired by printing. For one, we're print artists. Everything we do, I'd say 90% of it goes to paper. So right off the bat, me and Doug have always seen something that might have been printed, in 1965 to 1981 and been like, oh, look at this. And the design might be really poor, but the printing part of it was really great, or the colors, we used it really great. So we would go back to our studio and we would make something inspired by that printing piece. And then we would decide what we're going to make from that point sometimes. So our inspiration comes from many different places, not necessarily the art or the look, but sometimes it can be just the way the paper feels. We're really hands-on in the sense where, we still screen here in our studio, we make something, we want it to feel a certain way, we control it. We like the control aspect of making something. And so, you can be called retro, but to me, I actually don't think it's retro at all. I actually think that we are doing something that's it's what you think would have happened during that time, but actually didn't happen during that time. We'll make a lot of graphics that in your mind you think came from that era, but actually no way it came from that era, because we know what stuff looked like back then. It actually didn't really look like that. We were actually bringing a lot of modern things into an old time. So it's kind of like this hodgepodge of both of them kind of coming as one.
A lot of times we equate it to kind of, a DJ who's digging through the crates and finding, these little sounds, little samples, and kind of putting it together to create something new. But a lot of it is, just our remixes of things.
That's a perfect way of putting it. I think that articulates it perfectly. When did you know you had found some type of aesthetic, and how did it land your first big deal? Holy shit, we kind of found this style, vibing back and forth all by hand. And then it led to that first client. You guys were like, wow, okay, yep, I think we got something here. Can you go back to that moment?
we probably both agree on the same project, but before that happens, we were very fortunate that we were always, from the beginning of our design careers, were able to kind of do big jobs. We were very fortunate. So prior to Morning Breath having any kind of aesthetic, we already were doing huge name record covers for bands and for rap artists. I mean, there's so much more prior to even Morning Breath. I mean, I did the Eminem covers. We had our hand and our foot in the door of a lot of people that were seeing things. So it wasn't about us finding our aesthetic. We knew we were going to get there. It was just a matter, we were doing things behind the scenes always, but we were commercially doing a lot of design and illustration work that was really being seen. We just had to sneak it in and start showing them. What we started learning was the more you show what you want is the more you're going to get what you want. When you show things that you don't want to do, you don't get things you want to do. So the more we started showing people, hey, by the way, we also do this. We started doing this. We had a book of our commercial work of all these album covers we were doing, and Kanye West we did, and Jay-Z's and Foo Fighters, and all these big bands. And we were art directing and designing and hiring photographers. We were full-on creative directors, art directors doing that kind of work. But we also made a book of our personal work, and we started showing more of that.
You can give a little plug on that. You're already beating me to it, but what's your guys' book? I don't have it in front of me. It's over here, but I'll link it up in the show notes.
Well, we have two.
We have the Art of Morning Breath, the Early Bird, and we have By the Skin of Our Teeth.
I don't have the first one. Okay.
But even what we were showing was the book that we made was really, it was a scrapbook, which was really, just kind of a binder book with a silkscreen cover that we put everything from sketches that we did on top of pizza boxes to small little silk screens. And it was all actual physical artwork. It was nothing that was like reprinted. It was things that we were drawing on and silk screening on. And we sent that out as an accompaniment to our actual portfolio. And we started realizing that was what was getting people's interest.
Getting more reaction.
Was like the personal work scrapbook.
Yeah. And
how'd you send that out?
Well, it's funny, we have it right here. We used to have to mail physical books, like these huge physical books, FedExing to people. And these were like these big, huge portfolios that we have. We have like 4 of them. Yeah, and then we go to like London.
Yeah, open that shit up. Let people see the goods. If you're just listening to audio right now, better switch over to YouTube to check this shit out.
It's so beat up.
Yeah,
like, these were like, this pages were all ripped out on this thing.
So you'd have to make copies each time and then ship that out along with like your professional commercial work.
Like from like Europe to LA, and
books with like, just pages and pages of
album artwork, De La Soul, I saw Talib Kweli, Papa Roach.
Yeah, very much before people were really even looking at our website.
Yeah, this is like even big website.
But you weren't Morning Breath before this, or this was?
This is all Morning Breath.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Eminem. What was that? Curtain Close. Eminem.
But the thing is, so what I'm getting at is that we had a really good, intro to people to show them things. When you have access to people that are making the big commercial work, it's only a matter of time that you're going to be like, hey, let me show you something else. And then at that point, we'll both agree it was Queens of Stone Age. We developed a relationship with their manager, and we had our first book, and we had some stuff in there that were these characters drawn, and it got put in front of Josh from Queens of Stone Age. He loved it, and it kind of went from there. And that was like the first commercial job like that we feel like we put our aesthetic on, where people saw it and they knew it was ours. And then it grew from there. Really, like I said earlier, like what you show is what you get. The minute we started, we saw that door cracked open, we just kicked it. And from that point on, we've been pretty much doing what we want to do versus.
So the Queen of the Stone Age was like the first little glimpse and you kicked that door open. Because when I think of your guys' aesthetic and style, I don't think about any of that other stuff. You have cemented and taken over my brain with this. I'd like to call it, I feel like your work is serious as hell, but it just looks like play.
Yeah.
With that like kind of retro-ish, but modern gritty vibe to it.
Yeah, and I think also with that, what was going on, we were starting to spend more time in our studio creating physical pieces. We started showing work for the first time. We started having shows and
gallery style.
Gallery shows and stuff like that, which that also just added to our commercial work.
And did you just do that? You were just like, fuck it, one day I want to just have a gallery. We got enough pieces to show, like, and enough connections or relationships, I prefer to say. And you just Like, let's make it happen?
Yeah, I mean, people started asking us, and then more and more, we had a big studio where we were painting and printmaking, and again, skateboarding was all silkscreen. Those skateboard decks used to be silkscreen, so our whole beginning process was about silkscreening as a big core of it. Light to dark, very simple colors, and you still see it in our work today. We really only use 2-3 colors, and that's because we were together. We've always been in that mindset of like, oh, less is more. 2-3 colors silkscreen. Let's keep it simple. And so we started working our studio the same way, making paintings and more and more and more and more. And then people started asking. And once people ask, again, what you show is what you get. We started showing more of that, and we started getting more of that.
And, it's right time as well. Things started happening, I think, for a lot of artists at that time, that there was this growing kind of commercial interest in studio artists and street artists. And everybody was kind of eager to put together these artist collaborations, and there was this moment where I felt like everywhere you turned, we saw other artists that we knew or peers of ours that were also part of this. It was just this thing that was happening where every company had their brand times the artist, whether it was clothing collaborations or, something, whatever other kind of product. I mean, it could have been a, beauty product or a sneaker or anything like that was putting together these collaborations with commercial artists and as well as gallery artists.
Also, skateboarding got popular, and so we got the minute you're a skateboard artist, that kind of started following that wave, and then all of a sudden, Coca-Cola cares about skateboard artists, and then, iced tea companies want you to do something, and it just starts growing, and all of a sudden you work with this music artist, and that music artist really cares about the clothing fashion of skateboarding, finds out you do that. Oh, you did this for Stussy? Oh, well, we should be doing this together, and it just keeps going and going and going, and somehow something we've always worked on, anything we've ever done always got us our next job. And so whatever I'm doing now, I plan on getting my next job. And that's kind of how it's been for us. It's been a ladder where whatever we're working on at the moment, we're thinking the side that, okay, this is something that's going to get us a job in a year from now. And it just keeps going and going. And that's kind of what's been the trick of Morning Breath, which is just keep it moving, keep it moving.
I like that. So that's not always the case for many people. And maybe it's because of lack of execution or how to properly work and build relationships with clients. What do you think are the keys of how to create work that continues to get you more work? Under promise, over deliver. That's always been my main thing with someone.
A lot of it, how the saying goes, right? It's, it's who you know, right? But how do you get to know these people? It starts with who you meet. And I think people who go out there, they put themselves in the mix and they meet with people, that might not instantly translate into work for them, but depending on where the people they meet end up, and they continue these relationships with people, that could be work 2 years down the road, 3 years, 5 years. I mean, I have people even now that I haven't spoke to for 25 years talking about, possible new projects. So, I mean, you never know where it's going to come from, but it always does come from someone you met along the way.
Yeah, and also a lot of relationships we've had were before Instagram. Now, with Instagram, it feels like the relationships are, you know people, but you never met them, and so I guess a lot of younger people have the access of DMing and doing all these things. From when we first started, it was like you got in a magazine.
Got your little Rolodex of contacts.
We would be in Juxtapoz magazine, and then someone would call us like, "Oh, I saw Juxtapoz magazine. I'm in Australia," and you're like, "Oh, cool." Everything was moving much slower. Now I feel things. We put something up, or sure, if anybody out there puts something on Instagram, you're immediately getting this immediate thing, right? Someone's contacting you immediately. So, but the bad thing about it is that it disappears quick too. So you made something you put a lot of work into. You put it up on Instagram, and you make your printed piece. But Instagram, a lot of people see it, but within 2 days, no one cares.
Short afterlife kind of thing, yeah.
Life to it. Where we used to do things and it would live a really long time because we'd have magazine callers. It would take a long time for that magazine to get somewhere and that person see it. So I think that the reason why we can do it now is because we have a long history of doing it. It's not, we always say, a lot of people say we want to do what you do. And I'm like, there's a lot of good people out there, but do it in 20 years.
Yeah.
Really do it.
That's the thing. You got to give shit time to grow. And in this microwave era we're living in, where everybody wants to be a TikTok celebrity overnight, I think that's why I really wanted you on the show, to show the history of this shit just doesn't happen overnight.
And also, like going back to Jason's point, like, people would ask us, oh, like, how do you get into doing skateboards? And, I don't know if that was ever my personal goal. I didn't go out after it. It's just where you end up sometimes. And I think that there's people out there that do a lot of things and they just somehow that was just where they landed. They didn't seek it in the same way. I think that when you become really specific on what you want, it's possible, but it also sets up for more, kind of failure. I mean, you just got to be open, take what you want. It might be something you never thought of doing, but you start doing it and you realize that that's exactly where you wanted to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also a firm believer that things are meant to be. And I truly believe that. I went to California and I wound up in this skateboard community of doing art and things because that was what I was meant to do. You know what I mean? Like we're not corporate guys. We couldn't go walk. I couldn't walk in some design office and, we don't speak like those people. We don't hang out like those people. We went out and found our crowd. And this is the crowd that fortunately came up and did a lot of amazing things. And some people went up in some really far places and wound up becoming creative directors at some really great spots. But our generation of kids were a little bit kind of high school dropout-ish. And, and so there was a lot of really creative people in that world. And we were fortunate that we just all found each other, how I see it. We come from the generation, like in my high school, there was only, if you're a punk rocker, you find the other punk rocker.
Yeah.
And so it's similar to me in this art world that we all found each other. And San Francisco at that time was a hub. A lot of creative people were moving to and doing a lot of things. Doug was lucky that he was from there. For me, I went out there because, I don't know, I wanted to check something out new. I always admired California as a child and the lifestyle and the things. But I knew somehow within that city that I wanted to meet, fucking people that thought how I thought. And so I was just lucky that it went somewhere. But it wasn't planned, it's not like.
I think what you said right there is find your crowd. And another angle is like, don't force it. Allow shit to just like flow. I'm a big, like, trust the universe, law of attraction, go with my gut kind of guy. So yeah, I can definitely get behind that. Then to this day, how do you guys balance commercial work with personal work? And especially during a pandemic, like, I don't know what it's like in a commercialized world right now with, are people wanting to spend money right now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the first part of it is, the balancing. I mean, and
maybe I should say prioritize. How do you prioritize between the two?
Even balancing. Priority for us, I mean, is going to be money to some extent. I mean, New York is what it is, a very expensive place to be, and we don't have a choice. We both have families, both have a lot of overhead in our lives. So yeah, we need to pay bills. But in terms of balancing commercial work and creative work, I mean, I think that it just comes when we want it. There might be times where we're just not really feeling super creative or don't have this thing that we really want to do. But any given year, there might be just a moment of something sparks and either one of us that has this idea of like, oh, it'd be sick if we just did this. We're starting to put something together, and I think that excitement comes back around. And I think we make the time for that when we want to do it. I mean, it hasn't, like earlier on in our careers when we were really trying to push that, I mean, it would get crazy to the point where we're, in the studio 16, 17 hours balancing commercial work. I think that we've probably have slowed down a bit since then. But nevertheless, I think that if we have, I guess these bugs to want to do something that's personal and creative, we just do it. And sometimes, it might get in the way of kind of, making deadlines a little tight, but you got to make yourself happy as well. Like, I mean, it's like right now, Jason's been putting in a lot of work on the zine that we have coming out. And I know that for him, it's just like, get here early. I really want to put this together. He's putting a lot into it. And I think that's just kind of how things work around here. I think that something in him felt like, I need to put this energy into this, and I'm there as like support to back it up. But, it's either one of us at any moment can have those kind of feelings,
If you want to do something, you will make the time to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, really, this is we built a clubhouse. Our studio is our clubhouse where we come to create and to come to do what we want. And some days it might be talking all day. Some days it might be quiet, both of us working on something. Some days it might be one person working, the other person kind of, you know, that's the lifestyle that, again, that we wanted to create. We both have said this. When we were children, when we were kids, we envisioned having this. I envisioned having this. I built my room to look like this. My teenage room looked like my studio. I had my paint markers and my art things and my things on the wall, and I had my posters that I wanted to look a certain way. And I envisioned having this. So for me, it was like the minute I can visualize it, I can make it happen. So it makes no difference to me whether it's me envisioning my studio when I'm 50 years old or when it's making a zine or whether it's doing a silkscreen poster. Like once you have the vision of something you want to do, you just do it. And there's really nothing should get in your way of doing that. I mean, it's just kind of like, okay, let's make it happen. And you'll make mistakes along the way. But at the end of the day, there's really no mistake when you're doing something for yourself. I mean, that's all, right? As far as commercial work, that's how we pay our bills. We come in, we usually the first thing we say, what do we got to take care of today? What's the fire drill? Every day there's a fire drill, something that has to happen at Morning Breath, we'll take care of it. And that's just how it works. And me and Doug will both give each other that job of who's better at maybe handling it more. But for me and Doug, Morning Breath commercially, it's about the job. Okay, together we just take care of it. This needs to happen professionally, like anything else.
Talk about the zine. I know we had briefly talked a little bit about it, but I wanted to save it for this. Like, tell me, hype it up, man. I'm here to put it on the stage for you.
It's all made by hand. Only
Go figure.
They're very unique. We've made one before. They sell out in seconds. I don't know. It's something that
Is it all like repurposed work or like literally custom work, new work?
I don't totally give it up, but it's our way of showing things that have been on our table throughout the year. And so we make it this elaborate package, like, you know, it's hand sewn spines and silk screened posters and covers, and we have all kinds of little special things in there and stuff. I mean, you know, it's something that I'm a zine collector. I collect zines, so I want to be a part of that and kind of contribute to that as well creatively. We have a local shop here called Zerd Island that does amazing stuff, and I plan on giving them limited amounts there to support their shop because we really love what they do. And
are you making each one then by hand?
I cut everyone myself.
Jeez.
Yeah.
How many total are you making?
There's about 15,000 cuts.
Oh my God.
There's 125 of them.
125, and then the page count is like 30 something. So
125 total? When you drop them?
I don't know. I mean, that's the best part about doing it yourself. You kind of do it when you want. We're at the finishing line. So I would say it's probably coming out, like it'll be for sale in like next 2 weeks at least.
Okay, well, we're going to be speaking in the future here. So sorry, everybody listening right now. You just missed it. But man, can I pay you to hold one for me, please? Take my money. Take my money. But what time do you come into the office right now to work on this? I'm going to like build this little timeline for people who the biggest excuse I hear is I just don't have time to make time to grind and execute on something that's important to me. You know, I have my day job and a family, life responsibilities, yada, yada, yada. You just hear all these excuses. So I want to hear it from you. Like, how are you making time? What's your schedule look like to make this happen?
We're fortunate that this is our day job. There is no other job. Morning Breath is 100% we're in. And whatever that day consists of doing, we do. So that is, Morning Breath is our job. That's it. We put all our energy into Morning Breath. It's all about Morning Breath. It's like you mentioned earlier, it's like a band. The guitarists, vocalists, we come together, we're making a record. You know what I mean? Like we make this thing. So, you know, normally we get in, I don't know, I get around like 10, leave around 6:30.
I get in about 3:30 p.m.
I don't know. I mean, we were both fortunate. We both walk to our studio. We were walking distance to our studio. So there's nights I come here at 11 o'clock at night because I want to do something. I don't know. It's my garage. It's kind of where we come to do shit. So, but Monday through Friday, we try to do a decent Monday through Friday, let's say 11 to 7, probably.
Yeah, somehow we've adopted the California hours out here, and we just kept them.
Is that just like where most of your clients and stuff? So it works?
Early on, it started out that way, and I think it just worked to kind of keep those hours. And
also, New York is very known for starting late and ending late. Like most,
so you get to see your kiddos in the morning and finish the night hanging with the fam.
Yeah, I mean, our kids are older now, so they're kind of in their rooms telling us to go away. But
playing Fortnite or something.
Yeah, not doing homework probably. But it's like,
my kid's smoking weed.
Yeah, it's like I think that like, when our kids were younger, we tried to do the hours curve. Like Doug had said, before I had children, we would do till 4 a.m. I'm not lying. We'd be here till 4 a.m.
That's how it was. Shit, you had to rip me away from my work before I had kiddos, pissing my wife off all the time.
And then once the family started becoming more of a priority, we have other things outside of that are way more important than obviously even morning breath. So that changed it, and we kind of gave ourselves a schedule. And I think, like Doug had mentioned, as we get a little older, you tend to want the schedule to be a little more normal.
So if something's important to you, you make time for it. So like, I guess what I'm trying to say is you still have commercial work, you still have all the other shit, but this zine is important to you, self-initiated. No one's asking you to do it. No clients giving you a brief about it. It's just, you're just making time to do it outside of the normal realms of the work you already have. You have your day job, but to me, this is like you're making time for personal work, even if it's under the umbrella of morning breath.
Yeah, I mean, but then again, we get commercial work where I just did a punk rock flyer for the Foo Fighters. So, I mean, that zine actually is part of us getting work too as well. Like, I do it because I love it, but I'm hoping that someone sees something in it that I want to do it for them, maybe commercially, or, like I want to do that full time always. So if someone sees something in it, the whole point of doing something is also getting it out there to the world to see it. And so that also can be an avenue of maybe doing something more you love. I mean, you want to be a silkscreen artist or poster guy, go make a bunch of posters, start showing it, right? And then eventually some band's gonna see your poster and be like, yo, do that for me. And then you're like, okay, you just did your first poster for a band. And then after that, show that poster to a bunch of other bands. Be like, look, I just did the new Fu Manchu record. Check it out. And then that person will say, oh, wow, I'm the Melvins. I want you to do my poster. And then it goes and it goes and goes and it grows. And now you got 10 posters. You make a little book of all your posters and you hand it out to people and they go, oh, why don't you do more? Now you're doing 25 posters. Yeah, And a can company for a soda company likes silkscreen posters too and likes the band you did the work for. And he bought it at the concert and he sees who did it. And then he says, I want you to do a design for our can company for the new Pepsi bottle. Now you're making real money. You know what I mean? So it all started off with just making a poster in your room.
Yeah. Also to add even, there's things that we need to keep ourselves motivated and entertained here. And sometimes we're doing work that needs to be done, but it's not always the funnest work. It's not anything that we
pay the bills work, the kind of shit you're not going to show.
And sometimes it's just not that, we hate doing it. It's just not, our heart's not in it in the same way as something personal. So not only do we need to balance, work and personal work, but we got to balance, our attention and our love for design and our energy. And, I could, kind of attest to even right now, Jay's working on the zine because the progress is motivating him. It's that idea you're doing something and it's coming along the way that you like and you don't want to stop. So it's kind of like, well, work could take a little bit of a backseat right now because you got to do something that's personal and important to you to keep you excited about what we do.
Creatively fulfilling.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, like we're very supportive of each other where I'm doing that and that's making us not a dime. But Doug is working on like a Qbert record, which is making income into the studio. But we both know that they're both equally as important to put out there. And he might be then later doing something that he wants to do, and now I'm doing something that's commercial. You know what I mean? Like we really are really unselfish in the sense that it's like we really are supportive. I mean, and I'm not saying that clichely. Like me and Doug never really argue about design. It's kind of like
we argue about things outside.
It's really silly. It's like we're like,
like what album is better than another album?
Yeah, I mean, like we really just, I don't know, we're really supportive in doing things. So
even just how you guys flow back and forth in the conversation here, like I don't have to guide anything. It's just, it's not one person be like, okay, you want to go? Like I've had plenty of shit like that. Literally, it's
our wives
cohesive, in sync.
Our wives joke about it. We go to parties. And sometimes we're like talking to people and me and Doug somehow are still talking to each other. There'll be a whole group of people. It's like we only, when you work with someone for so long, for so many years in a room, you tend to only know each other's jokes. You know what I mean? Like I could go out there and tell Doug's story when he was a kid. Meanwhile, I realize I'm telling his story. Like, they were so intertwined with each other that it's creepy almost level, so.
Shit, I think it's dope.
I mean, it's kind of, we're isolated.
We're isolated.
Especially during a pandemic, that you just extra see each other and your families. That's about it. And you're in New York too, so it's a lot more stricter.
Yeah. Well, not just that, it's just dead out
He
there.
got dead. It's not New York anymore.
Yeah. Thankfully, I'm happy to be in the Midwest and things like this. A little Iowa. So I want to respect your time. Let's pivot to rapid fire questions real quick. If you guys were on death row, what would your last slice of pizza be?
Joe's Pizza.
Domino's.
Oh, okay. What kind from either place?
Regular slice. That's it.
Pepperoni?
No, slice. Slice of cheese.
Just slice of cheese.
Hawaiian pizza from Domino's.
Dude, I'll fuck with some Domino's though. I like me some Domino's.
Frozen DiGiorno.
Frozen. Oh, true gangster. Okay, that's like some munchie food for sure.
Pizza quick on Wonder Bread. Fuck it.
Some pizza sauce and some shredded cheese on some bread. That was me growing up.
I used to be the pizza king. Like I was a big pizza. When I was back in the 90s, like everyone joked to me, I was like the pizza, like I was the pizza dude. I was the pizza zine. I started a pizza zine. I never finished it.
Oh, please do that. I need to see that manifested into this world.
Writing stuff. I had a guy who got in California. There's a 3-strike law. I know you're doing the thing, but listen, 3-strike law, and he robbed a pizza guy at a pizza delivery guy, and he got a third strike. Went to life in prison over stealing pizza. I had all these people's interviews about pizza that were like this weird pizza stuff. It was called Pizza Face. That was the name of the zine.
Can you resurrect it?
No, I still have the files. I need to finish it.
Please do it. I'll promote that on the show and just treat it as a sponsor and be like, hey, it's coming out. Like that's just part of the brand. And honestly, rapid fire usually turns into tangent. So this shit really isn't rapid fire anyway. If you were both reincarnated, what would your new career path be outside of just like art and design?
I'd be a juggler.
I don't mind. Doug's going that route.
Or a mime.
Like real talk. I can't take you serious right now.
I would have a record store.
Me, you know what? I don't know. I mean, I'd like to.
I'll answer Doug. Doug would have a little taco stand.
Yeah, maybe a little taco stand.
Okay.
I'm gonna answer Doug's from now on.
And okay. What's your favorite record, and what would your taco stand be called?
What my favorite record?
I want to hear you argue. Basically, like, what's the top record? Top vinyl.
I'd say that my top playing records that I play are probably like Led Zeppelin, Houses of the Holy. But I don't know. I mean, I go through years and years of records I'd love for a year, and I go back and forth. There's years that I was like, only want to hear Black Sabbath. A lot of it falls into probably classic rock and classic soul. And that's within those genres. I have, I guess, multiple favorites, but I don't know if there's one. It's too tough of a question.
I refuse to answer that question.
All right. Well, it's your world. We're just living in it right now. So do you guys believe in aliens or like, oh, what, you got an answer then?
I'll be mad at myself if I answer it, so I can't.
Okay. Do you believe in aliens or any type of life form or paranormal just like existing within this planet or our solar system?
I don't believe in it at all, but I dream about it regularly. And I have these dreams that I swear to God, I know what an alien invasion is going to feel like because I've been through so many of them and they're so fucking real that I wake up like, holy shit, that's exactly what it will feel like.
Like Independence Day style of just a massive ship coming out of the sky. That shit freaks me. I dream of that.
It always feels like no one else is believing it at the moment until they have to accept that this is it. It's fucking finally happening. So I guess, I don't know. I don't believe it when I'm awake, but I fucking believe it when I'm asleep.
Even though like the Pentagon officially like released footage of this kind of stuff.
I do believe.
Yeah, I mean, there's something, but I don't know if it's alien as much as it is just
like Men in Black style. I gotcha. What? Let's see. Last one before we go on the main. Last one. You guys share. Where can people find you? What's a project you guys haven't done yet? Like, what's like the big goal dream project you just haven't manifested yet or haven't made into reality? What is like that one thing you guys want to do?
You know, I don't know. A lot of times I think that one that comes up, at least for me, and I bring it up and always hope that one day we get this type of project, is something that it could be a commercial project, doesn't have to be personal, but something that is heavily environmental, something that sometimes we're like, oh, wish we did something that took over the whole subway station, or took over and interacted with the environment in a way that, like, you see sometimes other artists that are fortunate enough to have those kind of projects. We've had stuff that, obviously is on a billboard or things like that, or on, bus shelters or on ads, but something that is created in a way that is deliberately specific for the space. Like, I wouldn't mind getting a project that took over not only a subway station, but whole trains. Just almost like our art and everything we're doing, like made specifically for the trains, so they interact in a way that interact with them inside and out, and with the station as well, like that sort of thing.
I'm surprised you didn't say this one, so I'm going to say it. And I know after I say it, it'll be bummed. The intro to a really big movie, like doing the intro titles to a movie that is a great movie, creatively a great movie, and that we can really go to town and do what Morning Breath does, like our thing, and give completely creative freedom on doing the intro to a movie.
Yeah, create all the motion graphics.
Connor, what was that? What was that somewhat recent project you guys did, like animated illustration? Was it for Vans, or what was it for?
We have another one coming out too.
For who? Dope. Well, one last thing. Where can people go to follow you online, support you, scope out for a future zine, maybe a pizza one?
Check out our website at morningbreathinc.com.
We never updated.
Our Instagram at morningbreathinc. Our Twitter at morning_.
I just followed you on Twitter this morning. I'm like, damn, this is like a ghost town.
We actually,
I needed to throw it out.
We don't use anything really, but we probably, Instagram is the one for the most.
Instagram and website is pretty much linked up, but Instagram is where I keep a pulse on what you're doing.
At morningbreathinc.com, at Jason at morningbreathinc.com, Doug at morningbreathinc.
I'll plug the emails in there too. I only have Jason's, but I think Doug's is pretty easy to figure out. But thank you. I appreciate the hell out of this. Like years in the making. I really, really, really sincerely appreciate it. I know people are getting a lot of value, and I can get this one checked off my bucket list. So I appreciate you guys.
Right on, man. I'll send you the recording to close it up, man.
Oh, and the invoice.
The invoice. Fuck it. Fine. Whatever. All right. Appreciate you guys. Peace.
Take care, man.
Thanks.
Thanks again for listening. It'd be awesome if you took the time to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and let the comment below so we can connect. Again, if you want to catch a shout out as a future listener of the week, make sure you subscribe to the show on iTunes and give it a rating and review.